The fast track of numbers. Business is a strange world where low numbers mean something different. And its currency are speed and time. Finding the open doors of Main Street is not just good business, it's the start of the business. Join us every weekend on Business Week.
We're glad to have you back. The Nigerian economy, no doubt, is challenged by rising inflation. The country recorded a 16.47% increase in the month of January from 15.75% recorded in the previous month, making it the highest increase in 3 years. The food index rose sharply to a record high to stand at 20.57% in January 2021, compared to 19.56% recorded in the previous month, representing the highest since July 2008, when it stood at 20.9%. The rise in the consumer price index indicates that consumers spent more in the month of January compared to December, despite the high spending that December is naturally known for. As inflation continues to rise, experts are of the view that this could make the local currency become weaker, reducing the standard of living of Nigerians, hereby calling on the Central Bank of Nigeria to reduce the quantum of money in circulation to stabilize the economy. Well, the big question now is what is driving inflation and what can be done to alter its course over the coming months? Well, to provide answers to this question and, of course, other issues, I have joining me live in the studio is a fiscal policy partner, an Africa tax leader, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Mr. Taiwo Idili. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your new appointment.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So GDP figures in, so we have plus 0.11% and overall minus 1.92%. I'm still going to go into details of this, but was this what you were expecting?
No. I think it's, I'll say, pleasant surprise because I was expecting that the numbers for Q4 would also be negative, given that we saw a negative growth in Q2 and Q3. And that's why technically we went into recession. Even though that growth is very small, 0.11%, but I think it's good news. At least it shows that if we can record another positive growth in Q1 of 2021, we will be technically out of recession.
Wow.
But it does not mean that our work has been done. Unemployment is still high, inflation is rising, like we said, and we have challenges with the business environment, along with issues around infrastructure and insecurity. So there's a lot more to do. It's just to say that it could have been worse. So maybe something to share about, at least for a moment.
Yeah, indeed. At least it's a good one. On a lighter note, someone sent me a message on Twitter and said they can't wait to see the soft-spoken Mr. Taiwo on set. You're on set, and I'm sure that person is watching. So now 16.47%, 15.75%, and we saw increases in all the COI, COPs divisions that yielded the headline index. What could be responsible for all of this? We've been through a lot since 2020, I know.
Yes. This is the highest in about 30 months, the inflation rates. And I always like to say, at the end of the day, everyone has their own inflation rate. So we need to always remind ourselves that these numbers are the aggregates and the averages for the economy. So if you think about 16.47, it's high because our target as a country is to have a single-digit inflation rate. It's even more worrying if you look at if you disaggregate and you see the component of food inflation. Now, why is this important? So it's more than 20%. Why is it important? There was a study even before COVID-19 by the World Economic Forum that shows that Nigeria actually ranks the highest in the world in terms of the percentage of household income that is spent on food. Remember that food is one of the most basic things in the world. For you to even stay alive, you need to eat first before you even think about where to put your head. So the poorer someone is, right, the more the percentage of their household income that goes into inflation. So if we have more people now being pushed into poverty, and the price of food is rising, then we should be concerned. When people are hungry and they are angry, it's a combination for disaster because they become irrational. And they also become a candidate for recruitment for anything, including terrorism. So we really need to focus on how can we make it easier for the vulnerable people and household just to have the basic things. Nigerians are not asking for luxury. Just give us food, give us water, and then a place to put our heads. Yeah, so that's the most basic. And I think if the government is unable to provide that, it would be fair to say it's a failing state, because I think sometimes people think that a failed state is when you no longer have a government in place. But it is the fact that government, the essence of the state, is to provide certain things, including security, including infrastructure, including social services. If you fail in doing that, and then the people are having to do it for themselves, then it is fair to say that the state is failing.
True.
But I think we have every reason to not be where we are. God is kind to us, I would say. We just issues to do with ourselves. Leadership, followership, everyone. We need to start behaving differently. So the components of this high inflation are essentially to do with, of course, the exchange rate. So whatever happens to USD, Naira rate affects everyone, whether you ever traveled before or you don't even have a passport, you know. So as soon as we didn't have enough, and you see in your introductory remarks, we saw that our foreign reserve has declined by $500 million. So the more pressure we have on the external reserve, the less our ability to defend the Naira. And once Naira is losing value, then the price of, because we still import a lot of things, so the price of things, even though the same in dollar terms, are going to be higher in Naira terms. One small good news though, but I won't take that to the bank, is the fact that as of today, the price of Brent, it's about $64.
Yeah, I was going there. But the landing cost of PMS is also on the high side. So it's a twin problem. We have the pastoral side and the header side, and it's joined with the issue of rising crude oil prices and the high landing cost. Some people are even selling PMS as much as 170 naira per liter at the moment.
Yes. Yeah, so this is where I'll put it.
Okay.
You're right? So on one hand, we want the price of crude oil to be high, so we can earn enough foreign exchange.
Yes.
And then we have the ability to defend the Naira so that the exchange rate is reasonable. And then when we import stuff, it's not too expensive. On the other hand, many of us, including myself, don't believe in subsidy because I think that I've done enough analysis to conclude that it's not going to the poor people. It's not going to the poorest people, certainly. So when the price of crude oil goes up, the landing cost of refined petroleum products will go up. Even if you refine locally, the price will still go up. You know, at least you save on freight, but it will still go up. But here is where the problem is. I think Nigerians overreact to the increase in the price of petrol. I say that because if you think about diesel, right? AGO has been deregulated for years.
God knows when, yes.
So take Molue. In fact, the poorest people use Molue. It's on diesel. Take trucks. Trucks are running on diesel. A lot of mass transit buses are on diesel. The one used to carry goods all over the place, intercity, intracity, are on diesel. Factories run on diesel. Whenever the price moves, people just adjust. It does not mean that if the price at the pump goes up by 5 naira, you should increase everything else by 5 naira. It's a small component of the cost of transportation. So while I do understand that this is a difficult time to bear the cost of higher pump prices of petrol, we also need to talk to ourselves, not to take advantage of the population by increasing everything correspondingly just because there's a slight increase in the price of petrol. Yes. What I think the conversation should be about is, by not doing subsidy anymore, they are federal governments. You're saving X amount, let's say it's 1 trillion naira.
Good.
The conversation should be, this is how you must spend this 1 trillion.
That's my argument. I totally agree.
Exactly, so that it goes to cushion the impact on the vulnerable people. That conversation is not happening, and it's giving me a lot of concern.
They need to educate Nigerians, and Nigerians to understand that if government continues to pay subsidy, then we continue to drive on bad roads, we continue to have
and we even fund corruption. You know, the part that is even more painful is that whenever they say it's 1 trillion, you can bet that half of that is going into corruption. Because there are people who come in, and we've seen this report before, I'm not making up anything.
Yes,
there are people who don't bring anything in. but they get the paper
Yes,
stamped,
yes.
and then they're claiming subsidies.
Yes.
We saw
Yes.
from the FRS's report that there were companies that were filing for subsidy claim of hundreds of billions of naira, and their turnover they ever reported to FRS was nowhere close to even 10 billion. So there's something that is just not adding up, right? So we are funding corruption, we are funding inefficiencies. I think that Nigeria can easily get to a point where we don't even need to export a single barrel of crude oil. We're talking about the African Continental Free Trade Area now, right? And I looked at the top 10 economies in Africa, and I said to myself, what is it that they're importing? 8 out of the 10, number one item they import is refined petroleum product. But of course not from Nigeria, because Nigeria itself is importing. Imagine that Nigeria can start refining its entire crude just to sell the refined product to the other African countries, because there won't be duties anymore. That alone would generate significant foreign receipt for us, create employment, and the value chain, petrochemical, fertilizer, all of it. The potentials we have, it's unbelievable as a country. And we have what it takes to transform the economy, but we just need the right environment and leadership.
Some will say when we have drastic issues, we take drastic actions because, you know, deregulation is one of it. We also know have the electricity on the other side. And the discourse are saying, no, we have to break even. We don't have money. That's always been the argument. And Nigerians are saying, we want supply or we want meters. We've seen a lot of interventions also from the CBN, I think, lately to the power sector.
Yes.
If that can work, what are the positives in these efforts by the central bank before we now go to how this inflation would also affect the monetary stance? Because I see the central bank, maybe there might be a shift in the next meeting. You know, they held all rates last time. So how do you see this affecting CBN? And of course, also on the power side, what's your assessment of all of these interventions?
On one hand, I'm not sure that I would say that the power sector intervention has worked very well. We have made some progress from where we used to be, but we're not where we're supposed to be yet. And I do sympathize with the players in that sector each time they have to struggle with price-reflective tariffs, because no investor wants to spend $1 billion and not be sure that they can even recover their money. Let alone make profit from it. A lot of the inputs that go into that sector are imported, so they're also foreign denominated, even sometimes including the price of gas. So whenever there's devaluation of naira, you expect that the cost will go up, and it should be reflective. I also do see the point from Nigerians where they say, well, we're asking us to pay for the power we have not even consumed. Right? So why don't you give us, you know, prepaid meters, all of those issues? So I think government has to take a step back and say, what is it that we can address immediately? Clean up the whole system in terms of what can you do to make prepaid meters available. What can you, because there are some people who bypass all those stuff and they use power and they don't pay. So it's both ways, right? But to your question, actually, in terms of the monetary policy intervention, some of the issues we are dealing with, and I do feel for the central bank, because sometimes they're doing far more than they should be doing, right? They're trying to intervene in different places. So one of the issues that I think has contributed into the high inflation rate is the ways and means financing of the CBN. So essentially, it's just the CBN printing naira and giving to government to spend. So I think we have it now at close to about 10 trillion naira. So what that means, technically, we say it's the way you impose tax without a legislation. When you print money to spend and it's not supported by productivity, what then happens is the value of the currency would fall. But I guess government did what they had to do. The law actually places a limit of 5% of previous year's revenue as the amount you can borrow from the CBN, and we got about 80%, so we far exceeded it. So I saw today that government is planning to now turn that into like bonds, so that it can be properly accounted for. But having said that, the CBN, I think they have tried their best in different interventions they have been able to do for SMEs, allowing banks to even restructure some of these facilities. But one area that I think the CBN has to try and deal with is how do you move progressively towards harmonizing the exchange rates.
Exchange rate.
It's still a big discussion, in my view. Yes, it's difficult. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's necessary.
It is.
It's like keeping the evil day till another time. Just bite the bullet now and see what. Because if you can get to a point where you build the confidence back, and the investors, whether they're local or foreign investors, can bring money in. We have over $19 trillion around the world today, attracting either zero or negative returns, which means there's plenty of money that can come to Nigeria if you give them the right signals. You know, so fiscal policies also play a key role.
I see a lot from the monetary side, and I think the fiscal needs to complement that. I was going to ask that, you know, like we said, the central bank is almost biting more than it can chew.
Yes.
So how well would you assess the side of the fiscal side? Are they complementing the monetary side so that we could actually, we see stimulus packages across the world, and Nigeria to GDP, the central bank governor said himself that it's about 4% to the GDP, where we have countries doing 18, 12, 15, and I don't think
even South Africa did double digits.
I don't think about 10 or 11%. We can do better than what we have at the moment.
That's the reality. So I'm not sure many Nigerians understand it from the way you said it. The fact is that government is incapacitated. The fiscal space is very little to do anything. Part of that also is that, so America has spent more than $3 trillion just to try and help people during this period. Why are they able to do that? On a good day, they collect over $6 trillion in taxes. So it's just really just giving back part of what you've collected before, right?
Wow.
And you have the data to be able to do that. So you don't need to start looking for people to carry Ghana Must Go and be looking for people that are poor in the villages. Everybody is within the system and properly So what I've been saying to government now is, we can leverage, even though COVID is a bad thing by every standard, but you can also turn it into an opportunity. It has moved so many people now online, which means you can track what they're doing. More businesses are being formalized. People are using banking system. And then you have the NIN. So why don't you use the NIN and the trend that we're seeing with COVID-19 to create data that is reliable and make sure that we have one single point of truth, right? Let me just query your NIN, and it tells me about your BVN, about your phone data information, about your investment accounts, securities, whatever it is. That way, if I need to intervene in terms of palliatives, I can query that data. Just take something as simple as anybody whose mobile, telephone, airtime, and data consumption in a month is less than 5,000 is likely to be poor, right? I can just take credit all of you. If you don't have a bank account, I credit your mobile phone, and then you walk into one small kiosk, and then you convert it to cash or food. So that having data, ability to have data that we can use is critical. We do not have it, but we can start creating now in a way that there's integrity of that database. There's also completeness, so that we can use it next time to be able to manage our affairs. And Nigerians also have to try and recognize the fact that when we refuse to pay taxes, of course we have 1,000,001 reasons why we shouldn't pay, but it's never the way out. When we refuse to pay taxes, when crises come, they always will come, then we will struggle. If Nigeria decides today to say the entire revenue we're going to generate for 2021 should be used to administer palliative, people will still be poor. The money is not enough. It's less than $30 billion, you know.
So indeed, we'll talk about transforming our economy now, because that's what everyone is after now. We see government economic sustainability plan. We see all of the plans, even state governments coming up with plans and all of that. In your thoughts, what do you think needs to be done so that we can achieve this inclusive growth?
We actually did some analysis at PwC a couple of weeks ago. And we said, see, if you ask the 200 million Nigerians, they have their template of what is wrong with Nigeria and what you can do to solve the problem. So we do not lack ideas about how to solve our problems. But the issue is many of those may not be practical in terms of implementation, it may not be feasible, and it may not make big impacts. So like Nigerians would say, for example, let lawmakers, cut their salaries. It's a good pastime conversation, but even if you pay lawmakers ₦1 today per annum, we will still be suffering. I do agree that we need to be more efficient with how we spend our money. So we identified 10 teams we consider at PwC that are capable of transforming Nigeria's economy. One of it is to unlock dead assets. So you have all manners of assets all over the place that are not productive. So put that into productive use. Government makes money from it. Private sector uses it to generate productivity, create employment. They make profit and they even pay taxes. So it just goes around like that. Yeah. Then improves the business environment. Of course, the business environment is challenging for us.
Just like the man DG was talking about.
Yeah, very tough time.
Manufacturers.
Yeah, I feel for them too. And particularly for SMEs.
Yes.
Then we can drive export through services. So we cannot compete in terms of manufacturing of goods under anything, including AFTA or even ECOWAS. So we have to play to our strength, which is services. Take our creative sector, take financial services, take professional services. And then another thing we identify is government needs to address the three big distortions. We call them the big three. The big three are, number one, subsidy. So we still have the subsidy on electricity, even the one on petroleum product. We're not sure whether it has gone or not. Because you still hear government directing them
5 naira
not to
off,
increase.
3 naira off.
Exactly. And then you have the one for electricity that they said is 50 billion per month. And many people are saying, who on earth were you subsidizing? So number two distortion is, of course, electricity. It's almost impossible to grow in a way that will be higher than our population growth rates without electricity. It will be very difficult. If you grow more than that, it will be driven by the price of crude oil rising, but that will not be inclusive, unfortunately. And then the other distortion that we have is, of course, stuff to do with the exchange rates. How do you unify it? And then we have other points that we also recommend, including how do you harness the power of the diaspora and then the brain power of those of us who are here. We think that you can actually export the brain power of Nigerians without them leaving Nigeria, right? Because with COVID-19 now, we see countries creating shared services center, innovation center, technology center, research centers. There's no reason why we can't have those things in Nigeria and service Africa and maybe even the rest of the world. And we have talented people, high energy, and they just want to do stuff, but the environment is really stifling. So, you know, the other ones is around improving gross capital formation. If you look at how much, say, manufacturers and the whole economy spending on fixed assets, buying new assets, and also on inventory, we see that has been declining. And it's an indication that they're not investing.
Of course.
They're not investing because the environment is difficult. And if there's no gross capital formation, development is almost impossible to come by. And one of it also is, let's start shifting focus away from GDP to the sustainable development goals. So can you provide clean water? Can we ensure that nobody goes to bed hungry? Can we ensure that there's education and it's available to all? You know, can we ensure equality and so on and so forth? And I think, again, it's important to always look at how can you, you know, focus on helping the informal sector. The focus of Nigerian government most times across all levels, it might be sometimes misplaced. They're looking for how to collect money from the informal sector. They say, that's where our money is. I said, that's not where your money is. That's the sector you need to help for them to scale. When they have the capacity, they will pay you taxes.
They will.
Right. So in many countries you find, and I use this data every time, in South Africa, the top 1% alone are just about 50,000 people. They paid about 6 trillion naira Fiscal 1920, or was it 1819? That's more than the entire taxes we collected in Nigeria. So if you beat up people who have no money to give you, you throw them up, they fall down, it's only blood that will come out. There's no money.
No money.
So we need to start thinking about how do we help them, one, to survive and then to thrive. And then when they scale up, they'll pay us taxes.
Very interesting way to live. It's always nice having you on the show. The soft-spoken Mr. Taiwo Idele is here, fiscal policy partner, Africa tax leader, PwC. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you
I appreciate
very much
your
for
time on
having
the
me.
show.
Thank you.